Welcome, everyone, to No Direction, the Pathfinder News, Reviews, and Interviews podcast. I'm Ryan Costello.
And I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param.
Param, PaizoCon.
PaizoCon happened!
Yeah, PaizoCon 2015 was this past weekend. There were a lot of changes to this PaizoCon. It was a 4-day con instead of a 3-day con. It was at another new venue, the largest that it's been at ever. And yeah, it still got that great PaizoCon feel, but this was always supposed to be a small, intimate convention, and now slowly, as it continues to grow and Paizo continues to grow, that intimacy is changing, but it's cool. It's cool the way that they continue to keep that intimacy, or they strive to keep that intimacy. Now, Param, I got to go to PaizoCon, and it was great. You, unfortunately, as is often, would have loved to have gone to PaizoCon.
Right.
Did not manage to go again this year. I have a feeling that more than most years, you would have liked to have gone to PaizoCon this year.
Yeah, it sounds like it was a blast and other reasons.
So, yes, it was. And most of this episode, I think, is going to be dedicated to PaizoCon. So here's what I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm.
You, as someone who didn't get to go to PaizoCon, will represent the people in the audience that didn't get to go. And
I get to be you from last episode.
Yes, there you go. You get to moderate. I've posted a list of topics. You can go in any order you would like in our outline.
Ooh, okay.
And you just ask me what order you would like to hear these things in. And as we go, we'll take questions from the audience. And after we do the special topic, we'll do a special no question segment where it's purely people wanting to know more information about the announcements or just about things that happened at PaizoCon that maybe we haven't covered. And yeah, I think we're ready to go. So if you've had a chance to look over the topics, where do you want to start?
Well, let's just start at the top here. And how was the venue? You said that it was starting to get really popular. I mean, was this overcrowded? How did this compare to something like the craziness of a Gen Con?
It does not compare to Gen Con, and it never will compare to Gen Con, I don't think. I have a feeling that if it ever did compare to Gen Con, Paizo would be happy to lose the intimacy to gain the 50,000 people coming to the convention. I'd actually have a hard time estimating just how many people were at the convention, because unlike last year and unlike previous venues, this one was really spread out. The double tree is it's tentacle-like in its layout. In fact, when I first got there and they told me where my room was, the guy at the desk took out the map. And, normally they do that to be polite. By the 5th or 6th turn in his directions on how to get to my room, I was like, I should have been paying attention because this is complicated.
Did he whisper Hail Hydra in your ear?
Not those tentacles, Param.
Oh.
Although, when seen from above, the double tree may look like the Hydra logo.
See? Perfect.
Now, as it ends up, the room that they originally gave me was the 5th furthest from where the PaizoCon events were taking place. So I chose the $10 upgrade to get a room in the tower, which was directly above the PaizoCon events, and it made my life a lot easier. But yeah, no, I could have been... Actually, the way Owen Casey Stevens described it is that his room was a 10-minute walk from the events. His home is a 15-minute drive. So that's how far he was from the core of it. And the other thing that I really liked about last year's venue is that you walk in the front door and you're immediately met with this social area. It's just these 2 sets of couches that are each in these circular areas around a table. It's good for chatting. It's good for gaming. There's a nice fireplace right there. So you walk in and you immediately get this homey feel, and you immediately feel like you're at the convention because you walk in and it's like, oh, Paizo staff, people I recognize, people that are clearly gamers. Whereas this year, the Double Tree, you walk in and there's the front desk, there's a restaurant on the right, the gift shop on the left, and then a series of wines. You have to make at least 3 turns before you can get to the first Paizo manned table. And the first thing that you see that's related to Paizo, besides a couple of posters, was the Sirenscape table. Now, I love Sirenscape and I love Ben, but it didn't feel like welcome to PaizoCon. It felt like Sirenscape is at PaizoCon. So it would have been nice if there was just some gathering area a little bit more immediately. There were a couple of tables and stuff, but it just didn't feel as intimate as the previous venue. That said, the place that I appreciated the most having extra space was in the PFS room. The open gaming area, or the gaming area, was massive. Param, in the past, you know how packed Gen Con is, right?
Yeah, crazy.
You're elbow to elbow with the people at the table behind you.
Mm-hmm.
This, absolutely not. Like when I was, I GM'd the Sunday night special, which is the second of 2 specials at PaizoCon, and while I was waiting for my table to get mustered, I was looking around and I was like, oh, this mustn't be a very popular special because it doesn't feel like there's that many tables. But then a little quick mental math, and there's like 40 tables with 7 people at each one. So there's hundreds of people in the room. But there was just so much extra space that they could have put hundreds more in the room. And in fact, the Adventure Card Game Guild was also taking place at the other end of the venue. And there was enough space between us that a special was going on and the card game people were not being disturbed by the noise we were making. Like it was so roomy and comfortable. It was amazing.
When the special goes on, usually Ben's up at the front, like with his army of sound devices, and that wasn't bothering him.
So I was talking about the Sunday special, and the Sunday special did not have the Sirenscape soundtrack, nor did it have a alpha GM. This was actually everyone is running the same scenario, but it's stuck. It remains at your one table. So kind of like the season opener at Gen Con last year.
Okay, yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
So now, which of the specials was this?
This was the Serpent somethings. Weeby Aspis.
Oh, Weeby Aspis? Darn.
Yeah.
That's the one I'm not going to be able to get into at Gen Con this year.
Oh, that's a bummer, Param, because it is good.
It is?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And I'll get into that a little bit later. I just want to talk a little bit more about the venues. Mm-hmm. Also, going along with the Winding Tentacles is that the seminar rooms were hard to find the first time, especially the ones on the first floor where you had to go down what just felt like a very narrow hallway. It just felt like a hallway where you would find rooms, like guest rooms. But no, it's the gym, and then immediately after that, it's actually conference rooms. And it was a little bit surprising that that was the location, but it was also fairly close to the main activity. So once you got there once, you knew to take that first turn after those couches, and you were there. Like the pool was there, the gym was there. There were enough landmarks that you could remember, turn right at the gym, just go right past the gym and go straight to the Paizo stuff that's going on a little bit further down. And then the other area of seminar stuff was on the second floor directly above the where the Pathfinder Society stuff was being played. So the PaizoCon section of the hotel was actually fairly close together. It was just, you could not like look across a hallway and see where the people were going. It was winding around a couple of corridors, but fairly close together nonetheless.
So did it feel like you were at a PaizoCon then, or did it feel like you were just shopping in a Paizo district?
Well, what's funny is that this actually helped to make it feel more intimate, because it never felt like there was thousands of gamers in one spot. I said earlier I couldn't estimate how many people were there. That's because I never saw everyone at the same time. Sure, the banquet was pretty full, but then I know there's still a fair number of people that didn't go to the banquet. And actually thinking about it, the banquet was the only time that I saw that gaming room full, and that was a massive gaming room. So there were a lot of people at this PaizoCon, Param. I know, though, that at one point I saw a picture of Victoria Yatsko, last year's RPG Superstar winner. I didn't know she was even at PaizoCon until I saw a picture of her there after the fact. It was just one of those things where it's like people you would recognize as soon as you saw them in the hallway, you might not see them in the hallway. So somewhat more intimate, but also somewhat not, because it just, you're starting to feel like 2 people in a larger country now.
Sounds like our little girl's all grown up and saving China.
Okay. Okay. I have no idea if that's a reference to something, Param.
Yes, Mulan, but also the fact that Pathfinder just launched in China.
Sarah Bull had an interesting point. She's a venture lieutenant for the card game, and she's been going to PaizoCon for several years now. This one, like over the last couple of years, she slowly converted from an RPG player to more of a card game focused player. And she was saying that for the card game players, it was feeling like the earlier PaizoCons, because you would just go and there would be just the 100 or so people that are there for that. And by the end of it, you know everyone's name. You've gamed with almost everyone that's there. You've definitely interacted with the Paizo staff. So that's interesting. And then we've got Pathfinder Online was there. And it's as Pathfinder segments, it feels like there will be these smaller communities within the larger community. And I think it's cool that that's happening. It's weird.
Yeah, but I mean, it's cool. But man, it's like it's like watching it change is just crazy weird over the years.
Mm. But then the other thing that you go to PaizoCon for is to spend some time with Paizo staff and meet them in person.
Mm-hmm.
There was always Paizo staff. No matter where you were, you had line of sight on a Paizo staff member. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit shocking how many Paizo staff members I had no idea who they were, because I thought we stayed on top of new hirings pretty well.
Right.
And so, I figured I'd at least recognize a name if I didn't recognize a face. But there were like a half dozen to a dozen Paizo staffers that by the end of the weekend, I still wasn't.
Oh, goodness. Now, were the Smurf Brigade friendly as ever? Or were they like absolutely exhausted? Like, I mean, have we reached the part where they're like ducking in limbos and evading the paparazzi, which I guess would just be you?
I am Paizo's paparazzi. No, they were not avoiding me. They were friendly as ever. Mm-hmm. I mean, I have to do it from my own point of view, where most of them know me, and so it's not just someone walking up to them and telling them about their character, although that will be a seminar we talk about in a minute. But no, I never saw a Paizo employee shying away from people or standing off on their own. They were always available. They were one of the things they did that was good was the autograph booth in the store. They had a table where at any given time, 3 Paizo staff members would be sitting at that table, and it's called the autograph booth, and you could go and get autographs, but you can also just go and chat. That was what it was for. It was so that if there was someone you really wanted to talk to, here's a board with all their names, be there at these times, and every staff member was there multiple times. So you could find the Paizo staff member. They allowed people to come to them instead of having to look for them.
Okay. That's handy.
It was.
Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, PaizoCon, one of the biggest things going on there is the Pathfinder Society gaming. I know this year they had to force people to not just play 1 billion Pathfinder Society games. So what was the gaming scene like while you were there?
There were 2 slots of gaming every day, except for Monday where there was only one. You had the one that started at 8 a.m. and I think it went to noon or 1 o'clock, whichever one the math works out. I guess 1 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
Those were scheduled by Paizo. Absolutely packed room. Then there was a gap from 1 until 7 where anyone could set up a pickup game in the gaming room. So the Pathfinder Society HQ was still there. GMs still had access to the tables. Like, you had plenty of space. So for those people that go exclusively to get as much Pathfinder Society play in as possible, it was there. You couldn't sign up earlier, but there were enough people that were looking for pickup games, and there were enough ways that you can get the word out that you were looking for a pickup game, that if you showed up at 1 o'clock, said, I've got this character, what scenarios are being played, and who's got space, you could probably find a game.
Okay.
And then
the evening slot?
Then the evening slot on Friday was the first special, which was names.
We meet good one. Cobalts?
No, that one is exclusively at Gen Con.
Okay.
So it was, I am going to look it up while I describe it.
Sky Key Solution?
Nope.
Okay.
Maybe.
The,
Let me see if my schedule is still up on the boards.
And so it does sound like gaming was definitely a major feature there, at least. Did you get into a lot of gaming, or were you mostly seminaring?
So, all right, I've got it up here. It was Siege of Serpents.
Okay.
It was in 3 parts, and it combined a lot of the best of last year's special and the year before special.
Now, this was the big GM event special?
This is the one that had an alpha GM, and that has plot ramifications that affect next year's Pathfinder Society season, which is the year of the Serpent.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to be spoiler light. I'll go a little bit into format. It starts off pretty well. You're at a Grand Convocation, and part 1 is being at a Grand Convocation. And there were just these tiny little skill things where you're like described as, or the GM describes, over here there are feats of strength going on. Over here there's an obstacle course. Over here people are telling stories, whereas over here they are giving seminars. And the difference is one would be a perform check, one would be a knowledge check. Same thing, the feats of strength would be a strength check, whereas the obstacle course would be an acrobatics check.
So yeah, we got the feats of strength, the obstacle course, and the seminar booth. I mean, did you have to pre-register? I mean, was there a line for the tickets? I mean, are some unfortunate Pathfinders having to stay outside of Absalom 10 miles?
While they were described as being lined up outside, the PCs were fortunate enough to have all access pass to every single event. You show up, you're the first in line. This was nice because every single player was given an opportunity to do one skill-based or ability score-based check. And so it was a way for everyone to do the cool thing their character can do, even if it's skill-based instead of a combat-based. Although, no, there was a knife-throwing competition. So there was also a little bit of combat-y stuff. Oh, there was like the menagerie. They had wild animals out, and you could wild empathy or handle animal them. Like basically, if you were, no matter what class you were or what your niche was as a character, you got one moment right at the beginning of the scenario to show off. Or fail your check and then have to, live up or overcome that terrible performance. And if you succeed, you also get a bonus. So there's a reason not to just rush past it and be like, whatever. We're just waiting for the action to start. Part 2 is the action, which is very much like Siege of the Diamond City in that it's like, here is the campus that the Grand Convocation was taking place at. What section of the campus are you running to? And like there was color coded based on the amount of danger that was in there.
Okay.
Part 3 was like last year, the search for the Sky Key.
Yeah.
Something about the Sky Key, where that one you are actually moving through a building and you start with one of two choices. You go up or down. And then from there they branch off. And so that was like a building exploration. So instead of just doing one or the other of those things, they combined it. So it's kind of marathons from running around the campus to running around a building, and all the while trying to figure out, why are these crazy things happening? Why do people constantly attack the Grand Convocations? Why do we keep having Grand Convocations if people are always just going to attack them? And every now and then the GMs would come up on the big screen, tell you how you're doing at that particular part. It was a blast.
Excellent.
I think I like it better than the last two, just because it seems like an evolution of the last two. It's nothing new, but it takes the things we're familiar with and shrinks them so that there's a little bit more pressure in each individual section. And yet it's a familiar enough sub-game that I knew exactly what was happening as soon as I saw the map of the campus go up. And then I knew exactly what was happening as soon as I saw the map of the building go up.
Now, I really loved last year's. Siege of Diamond City was probably my favorite of all the ones they've ever done.
2 years ago.
2 years ago?
Yeah.
No, I'm not thinking about Siege of Diamond City.
Search for the Sky Key? Or
Search for the
Sky Key?
Yeah. Where we did the giant dungeon exploration and then the twist.
Yes, there was no twist at PaizoCon. The twist was introduced at Gen Con. So when I recently replayed it at Can Games, I actually got to experience the twist, which was pretty cool.
Oh, did you know about the twist going in?
I did, because I was talking to Tina about it, who played it at Gen Con, and then she was like, oh, and then this twist happens. And I was like, what do you mean this twist happened? That twist didn't happen to me.
That was crazy awesome twist. I mean, the twist made that scenario, which is why it's my favorite, because you're like, okay, we're done. Awesome. Great job. Clap everybody on the back, guys. What? What? And then awesome stuff happens. So it does sound like this one's going to be cool. And then, like, was there a special every night?
No, because Saturday was the banquet.
Okay.
And then Sunday was the second special of the event. This was Serpent's Rise, aka Weeby Aspis, which used the exact same maps as the previous special, and filled in some gaps about what was happening at the previous special.
Oh, goodness. I might have to see if I can weasel a way into getting into that now. Because
you do. I don't know how I missed this, but the Aspis Consortium is basically Cobra.
Yeah.
I don't know how I missed it.
There's a symbol.
It's, yes, very obviously Cobra. I have no excuse, but I am super excited for the Year of the Serpent. I was talking to the people at HQ, and they were saying all about the G.I. Joe themed characters they were building up for this year. And I was like, you're a genius. And I have to figure out how to make somebody. I could try Snake Eyes, but the role-playing would be hard.
Yeah, don't do Snake Eyes, because, I don't know, he'd
Really
be super recognizable, but... But who could you make in Pathfinder that would be instantly recognizable by a large enough group?
Shipwreck.
Shipwreck. It had to be Shipwreck, yeah.
I'm thinking shipwreck. And then that one aquatic episode or scenario of the season, shipwreck.
Yeah, you've got it down.
Yeah.
Now, did you get into any other type of gaming, or was it just Pathfinder Society and card games?
So I volunteered to GM 3 events.
Uh-huh.
One was the Overflow Archive for core. No, I'm sorry, not Overflow Archive. I played in that one. So I might as well start with that. Majuba ran the Overflow Archive for us, which I played Thundy, my half-orc who used to be a gnome and still acts like a gnome.
Uh-huh.
And by now I'm a high enough level that as a telekineticist, I'm starting to be able to do a few more cool things, although I still just basically feel like a one-trick pony. But when we get to the banquet talk, we'll talk about how that's going to change.
Well, I mean, that was when last year during the seminars, they pretty much said the kineticist was the one-trick pony. It does the one thing, and it does it well.
And
which is every fighter build going. Sorry, guys.
The Overflow Archive is a fun scenario because the title is a pun.
Oh?
An Overflow Archive is the section of a library where they just put the books that they don't have room for anymore. It was flooded. So there was a flood in the Overflow Archive, Param.
Oh, okay. That's
this is a brilliant scenario. It is ingenious. There's a nice little puzzle-solving thing that goes all the way through that it flavors it. It's not too complicated, but it motivates the players to go forward, and it just makes the whole thing a little bit weirder than any other scenario you're used to. It had the harrowing vibe to it. So I actually strongly recommend it, especially to Dark Archive players, because this takes place in a library. You definitely want to get in on that.
This sounds suspiciously like something else, but I doubt I doubt that that's intentional.
I don't know. But I can also say it's actually fairly combat heavy, but really benefits from a role-playing heavy GM. It's really one of the best balanced scenarios, and Majuba made it a lot of fun for us.
Excellent. And any more gaming, or is that all of it?
So I was scheduled to run Beacon Below, which is a 7 to 11 scenario. I was scheduled to run it core.
Right.
Core debuted in February, which means that I would need a table of people that have been marathoning core to be able to qualify for a 7 to 11 table. I did not have it. So my event got canceled.
Oh.
And then Sunday, I was scheduled to run the Tapestry's Toil, which is a 5 to 9 scenario. Also core. And as I discussed with the GM next to me, it was about maybe a 50-50 chance that there would be enough core players to fill a 5-player table. And there were.
Oh, cool.
But there were 2 Tapestry Toil tables going on, and mine did not get filled.
Oh.
So the math checked out. But yeah, I had 2 games scheduled but canceled. And while that was a bummer, especially for the first one, Beacon Below has subsystems and stuff, and it's one of the early season 6 scenarios, one of the ones that actually got criticized for being just so long and complicated. And that was the one I was super prepared for, and that one did not go off. And then Tapestry's Toil was actually a much more straightforward, more of a dungeon crawly thing. So I wasn't as prepared, so I didn't lose as much prep time for Tapestry Toil when that got canceled. But what losing those 2 slots of like 6 hours of gaming one thing, what that opened up is that I managed to do delves, which were right outside, and those were fun, and you get to play with a lot of the guests to the show and Paizo staff. I got to go to some of the seminars that I didn't think I would personally get to attend. I thought I would have to put a recorder. And I got to just hang out with people, which is exactly what I love doing at PaizoCon. So that 6-hour block, by not gaming at it, I actually didn't lose a whole lot. I lost sleep because they were both 8 a.m. slots. But otherwise, I think I made the most of that time. And I think my PaizoCon was better for it. I think next year, if I go again, I would volunteer for 2 slots at most.
Yeah, I'm finding I used to want to do the marathon tier 1 game master, sign me up for everything you got, but anymore, I mean, I just can't keep that pace up, especially not with all of our other responsibilities that we take upon ourselves for these things. Now, last thing I'm going to ask you about gaming is, did you get a chance to check out the card games at all and see how that was going?
I did. That was actually another one of the things that I did on Sunday when the Tapestry's Toil got canceled. I played scenario 1 of the Season of the Righteous. Whatever, the Wrath of the Righteous season. I believe the title is Season of the Righteous. It actually debuted at PaizoCon. And At this point, I've played Rise of the Rune Lords card game, Serpent Skull card game, and Wrath of the Righteous card game. Wrath of the Righteous is the first of the adventure paths that I have never played any part of. So in that way, it was different from the other two. The scenario I played did not have Mythic yet. So I didn't get to play the new mechanic. And otherwise, I found the Wrath of the Righteous box kind of like Rise of the Rune Lords, but slower. Slower. I really liked, slower. It was just like the encounters were a little bit harder. They were possible to overcome, but it required more resources. And so you had to play a little bit more carefully. Things felt a little more dangerous. Maybe it was our specific scenario. It had a maze, and I was a bard. And I got caught in a maze, and I'm supposed to be at the same location as somebody else to make the most of my character. But I couldn't get out of the maze because I wasn't smart enough. So I never really got to do my cool bard stuff. I felt like an idiot who was trapped in a maze a lot of the time. And I just kept flipping from the one deck because it was the only deck I really had the option to do. I chose a bard from the bard class pack that was very average. Like all of her stats were D6s or D8s. Whereas usually you'll get a couple of D4s, but you also get some D10s and D12s. So I was never really guaranteed to win anything, which meant that I always felt the need to buff myself up with the thing of the gods, the blessings of the gods, or any other way that I could buff myself up. And just overall, I was less enthused by that specific scenario, although it had an amazing ending, because a lot of the times with the adventure card game, you look at how many of the blessings in the blessing deck are left. And of course, that's the countdown. That's game ends if you reach the bottom of the blessing deck. So we had 3 cards left in the blessing deck. We had 3 open locations, and you win the game by closing all the locations and defeating the bad guy.
Right.
Now, if you have someone at a location when the bad guy shows up, you could temporarily close that location. So we had 3 locations open, but we did have people at every single one of them. And we just had this one thing, demonic hordes, that you had to successfully defeat 4 or 5 times, randomly determined, and it ended up just being the same 2 people, including our cleric, who was not combat heavy. And so that felt like the beginning of the end. There's 3 turns left. We've got demonic hordes. We have no idea where the bad guy is, and we've got 3 things open. But it really started to pick up when we managed to defeat the demonic horde. So our sorcerer took out 2 of them. That was Sarah Bull again. And then our cleric defeated 3 of them using really improbable luck, really high rolls, and some really good tactics. But that tapped him out when he was the one that found the bad guy on his turn, which was the last card turned up. So this was our last opportunity to do anything. We went to the first location, managed to temporarily close it. Second location, I managed to temporarily close it. Then he had to roll a 7 or higher on 2d8 to finally defeat the bad guy and win the game. And he rolled a 7 on the dot. So it was like as close as a game of the Pathfinder adventure card game can happen. And we let out a roar because there was so much tension in that one die roll, which had everything we had, every last resource packed into it, and he rolled and successfully accomplished his mission.
Woohoo! Yay! It sounds intense.
Yeah, it was an intense last couple of turns. Overall, I think if people laid out all 3 adventure card games and said, do you want to play a game? I would say yes, Skull and Shackles. It's fast, it's adventurous. I really like the stealing ships mechanic. So I would like to try the Wrath of the Righteous one again, but I'm not going to go out of my way to play it.
You think it'd be any different if you got Mythic up?
Yeah, I want to keep playing until I can get to a Mythic level at least, and at least see what that mechanic is. Because the way Mike Salenker described it, the original mechanic was completely functional but completely boring. And so they really they delayed the release of the game so that they could spice up the Mythic mechanic and make sure that it's fun to play. And I haven't got there yet. So the big selling point of the game, it's like an unlockable character in a video game. You're playing Smash Brothers, but you really want to play Solid Snake in Smash Brothers. Well, you got to unlock Solid Snake. Mythic is Solid Snake. In this
it was much like that with was actually playing Wrath of the Righteous. Like I enjoyed the first adventure a lot, but you could tell like everybody was like, okay, when do we get this Mythic stuff? When do we get this Mythic stuff? And it's like at the very end of the first book. So it's like, a half dozen sessions in before they get Mythic. Mm-hmm. All right. Okay. Now the audience is going to kill me if I don't ask you about the preview banquet now. So tell us about the preview banquet.
Many things were announced at the preview banquet, Param.
Awesome. What was the first thing talked about?
I believe the first thing they covered was the new adventure path. No, you know what? I think I'm wrong with that, but whatever. We'll go with the adventure path first because it's the first thing on the outline. Mm-hmm. They announced that the new adventure path, for the first time ever, would pair up with the previous one.
Uh-huh.
In that it's a Cheliax-based adventure path.
Okay.
And also, for the first time ever, you play evil characters.
Oh,
Now, in the banquet, they said you work for that guy, and they showed a picture of Asmodeus. But
right.
then in the Adventure Path seminar, they cleared that up, and you're actually not working for Asmodeus. You're working for the House Thrune, who are actually at odds with Asmodeus. So you're evil.
It's a weird relationship, those two.
It is. So there's going to be a lot of evil on evil action, but there's also going to be evil on good. And that was one of the things in the evil seminar. There was a seminar specifically for jamming evil games that unfortunately the recorder did not record. So I'm glad I was there. I can give you some highlights, but we might have to have Stephen Radley McFarlane on as we get closer to Hell's Vengeance release, which is the name of the Adventure Path, if I haven't mentioned that yet, so that he can go over a lot of the points in that. But one of the points was that a good character will fight an evil character for no reason and will need a reason to fight a good character. An evil character will fight a good character for no reason and will fight an evil character for no reason. So that actually means the entire bestiary is is a viable opponent in Hell's Vengeance. Now, I speculated then, so it's like, is it evil, but is it actually like the Suicide Squad? Are we evil? Are we using evil powers in the name of good? And they clarified, the first mission, you are assassinating a dog. They're just right. First thing you're doing is finding an innocent, loyal creature and killing it. That is the first part of the first book of Hell's Vengeance.
What? Like, okay.
Because evil, Param. You're
right. I mean, kick the puppy, all that jazz, but that seems like a really odd first mission regardless.
Well, you know what? You throw off, like, let's say somebody, they didn't say whose dog it was, but let's say it's somebody, let's say it's a paladin's loyal companion. You will really throw that paladin's game off if he comes home and you've killed his dog.
Right. And there's no clearer way to motivate a person into stupid vengeance than to kill their pet.
Exactly.
As John Wick has taught us.
They did go on to make it extremely clear that this is an evil adventure path. You may get uncomfortable in some points. It will get evil. There were still some things that they said were taboo, but basically, do not expect this to be like, haha, we're evil, right? No, you are evil. You are capital E.
Yeah, but they don't pull their punches with evil. They don't pull their punches with the orcs or vampires. There's none of this goody two shoes halfway in between nonsense. It's evil is evil, and then they go out of their way to make you even with the goblins, which are their most comedic evil they got. If you play through Rise of the Rune Lords, there's several sections where they remind you, oh right, these things are evil and horrible creatures with no redeeming value. So I dread to see how evil servants of House Thrune can get.
Now, I said it pairs up with Hell's Rebels, which is the adventure path that comes before it. But they gave us a little bit more information about Hell's Rebels. First of all, it starts in Cheliax, but it moves away from Cheliax pretty quickly.
Right.
Whereas Hell's Vengeance spends a lot more time in Cheliax. So you could potentially play both of them, and you will not feel you'll maybe get a little bit of Cheliax fatigue, but you won't it won't be like the two specials where you're playing two sides of the same coin. Okay. Yes, they have opposing missions, but your two campaigns will not just be the exact same thing from two different points of view.
Right. Well, and part of me wonders, like, if it was chronological as well as related, I mean, like, is this just undoing all the good you did in Hell's Rebels?
That is another thing that's different about Hell's Vengeance. Rob McCreary did point out that usually the adventure paths take place in not in real time, but like if every year since the Pathfinder campaign setting was released, the in-character time of an adventure path moves up by the appropriate amount of time for the release of the first volume. This is the first time that it will actually be a little bit in the past. So Hell's Vengeance starts on the same day as Hell's Rebels.
Okay.
And then goes in two very different directions.
So, did they give a good pitch on this? Is this something you would play in, excited to play in?
No, I'm really looking forward to Hell's Rebels.
Right.
And Hell's Vengeance, I know there's been enough talk about We Want an Evil campaign in the same way that a couple of years ago there was talk about We Want a Numeria campaign, We Want a Sword and Laser. So the Numeria campaign came out, the people that were demanding it delivered, they bought the game, it was a very successful adventure path. So now it's time to try another off-the-beaten-path adventure path, the evil one. In the evil seminar, I was explaining some of the reasons I would hesitate to GM an evil campaign. And it's not the subject matter. It's there's a shorthand that we all can agree on. Like my example was, if I tell the players they walk into a bar and there was a patron at the bar that is complaining that his drink is warm and he whacks the waiter, that is a call to action. That is a call to action because the players, like their characters, have a fundamental goodness, and that's not cool. And unlike in the real world where you say that and you might get really uncomfortable and you might not do anything, PCs will do something. They will get in his face. And then if he's the contact that they need to talk to, then it makes it a really awkward role-playing scene. If he's just some schmo that is just a jerk, then they can knock him down and feel good about themselves. I don't know what the equivalent of that is. My suggestion was like, so do I say they walk into the bar and the guy at the bar tips well? Like, what is it to touch their base evil side that would really upset them as players in the same way that the jerk customer at a tavern would? And again, Stephen Randy McFarlane had a really good explanation. He's like, well, you don't want that scene to play out the same way in a good game and an evil game. You want it to play out like in an evil game. So if they walk into the bar and the guy's a good tipper, they don't get up in his face. They wait for him to leave. And then they follow him. And then they rob him.
Oh, yeah, that's what they would do.
Yeah. So
I suppose you could like insult them because like when I think of evil, I always think of all that little hesitation I have against vengeance for petty slights is gone. So just like little petty slights would be a good motivator.
I think that's everything. Well, actually, they went into the back matter of Hell's Vengeance as well, and it's going to be exploring a lot of the Thrun family, the politics in Cheliax. And it's so Cheliax focused. I asked the question, well, if I'm planning on running or playing in Hell's Rebels, is the GM better off waiting until Hell's Vengeance is done so you can make use of that back matter? And they said, no, absolutely not. It's much more focused on this, and any information about the House Thrun, it's not going to be a major part of what the players interact with for most of Hell's Rebels. So that information that you need to run Hell's Rebels already exists in other Cheliax books.
Okay.
The Hell's Vengeance back matter will be much more focused on what you would need to know to be on the inside of House Thrun, to maybe be able to sit at the Thrun table and get a favor from the Thrun family.
All right. Now, my gut reaction is the same as probably yours. Is like I don't see myself running this, though I'm kind of interested in it just for like an insight onto what these guys are thinking, because they're such a huge part of Pathfinder. So this adventure might be a great tool just to get an insight of what are their motivations, what are they really after, you know, given their time to shine in the spotlight, what would they do? That will become valuable in future campaigns. But I don't like running evil campaigns not because the subject matter, though the subject matter does become a problem for those that, you know, you got the guys at your table that's haha evil, and you got the good serious role players that's like, I'm going to really make this a compelling story of evil. And then you get the guys that are a little too into it. And at the same time, I have a hard time with any time I try to run evil, in that I have a ridiculously hard time getting the players to cooperate. Because this is still a role-playing game, we need to move on with this group storytelling. And, well, you guys officially hate each other. There's no way we're going to make it to book 2. The surviving 2 or 3 people that haven't backstabbed each other cannot complete this campaign.
That was a large part of what that seminar was about. And so, as we get closer, we will definitely have to talk more about evil and running an evil game.
Yeah, we need to. Yeah, I see a series of interviews already in our future. Mm-hmm. This is something I'm highly motivated to buy. This is the first time I've been highly motivated to buy and read something without running it. Because usually, even like the most random stuff on the shelf, I'm like, I really want to run Baba Yaga's Chicken Hut the Adventure. I really kind of want to run Thundar the Adventure. I kind of really want to run Dinosaur Island the Adventure. You know, there's always this like back of my mind, possibility. You know, I really want this stuff eventually in a game. This one, I'm like, no, there's like zero chance I'm running this, but this will be cool.
Here's something that's odd. The campaign setting stuff, so the Player's Companion line and the campaign setting line is going to be very Cheliax light.
What?
Well, yeah, so we're used to an adventure path coming out and then a whole bunch of stuff supporting that adventure path directly.
Right.
We just had Giant Slayer come out. The Giant Slayer handbook came out.
with some of the coolest and most overpowered magic items in existence released in those books.
Yes. Yeah, I remember one I like in particular, but I don't remember the details of it. So anyway, we'll move on.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is that we've already got the Cheliax campaign setting book. We've already got a lot of stuff about the Cheliax, the Hell Knight, and the Hell... Shoot. There's like the caster version of the Hell Knight.
Oh,
Anyway.
I'm drawing the blank too.
Hell Knight Prestige class is available in the Inner Sea World Guide. So like the basic campaign setting has the main Prestige class that's already associated with this. And then the Paths of Prestige book has the... Nope. I thought if I if I balled a big enough fist, I would be able to remember the name of this Prestige class. But the caster-based Hell Knight, still not coming to me. That's in Paths of Prestige. So really, at this point, they would have to make up stuff to then make rules for it to tie it into Cheliax. And it would be a real retrofit, and it probably would not feel sincere, and there would not be a lot of fanfare.
Yeah. Well, we also have an official Cheliax book. We also have the Book of the Damned. We also... Like all that stuff. Cheliax is popular for a reason, and so it has a lot of product. But they just released the 64-page Cheliax book. They're not going to do, or not Cheliax, the 64-page Andoran book. They're not going to do a 64-page Cheliax?
They may do one, but for a year of Cheliax Adventure Paths, we are going to get less Cheliax-based support per adventure path than you would expect.
Okay, so what's filling in the gap?
Well, for the first gap, so when Hell's Rebels comes out, it's going to be a lot of occult-based things. So occult origins, occults, bestiary, all the stuff that now 2 or 3 times whenever a hardcover book has come out, there's going to be the associated one. We might get an occult bestiary, an occult NPC codex. And then beyond that, we don't really know. They didn't make a lot of announcements about what's going to come out in those 2 particular lines. Only what's not coming out, and that is most of what you're expecting to come out.
Okay. Well, I guess a whole year of Cheliax would even drive me nuts. I mean, like, what do? You go 6 months in the standard pace, like we got with Giant Slayer and what we got with Wrath of the Righteous and all that jazz. But then, oh wait, the second 6 months? Huh? Okay, but still, cool stuff. Yeah, and Occult is such a... They really need to build that up for it to work. Honestly, they needed to build Mythic up like that for it to work, but it kind of seems like Mythic has sated it. It did, like you said earlier, it has sated its fans and needs no more attention. So if Occult's going to work, it's going to need the support and a lot more of it than any other basic rule systems I can think of, because running an occult adventure, from what I've been picking up on, is going to be very different if you want to tie into those sorts of themes.
Now, this is just an inference on my part, but I get the impression that the Wrath of the Righteous and that whole release schedule, that model didn't work for Paizo. I don't know if it was just unsuccessful financially or if they just didn't feel creatively challenged by it, but the releasing a hardcover that goes along with that adventure path and all the soft covers and everything that came out at that time is related to Mythic. They've just, every time they're like, we're doing this new adventure path or we're doing this new hardcover, like Occult came out and they're like, but we're not going to do the same thing we did with Mythic. I don't know why, but they are almost proud of the fact that it's not going to be the Mythic Handbook treatment again, or the Mythic Adventures treatment again.
Well, I think a lot of the reasons they did that so heavy with Mythic is, if you listen to some of the early talks, it's like they made the Mythic book so they could do Wrath of the Righteous, not the other way around. But yeah, that's I guess that was overkill, especially if you had zero interest in Mythic. I guess there was a 6-month block of product that you were just like, nope, no thanks.
I am curious how the Hell's Adventure Paths, how they're going to pair up with the Occult Adventures. Like, is it going to be this thing that has nothing to do with the occult, but just loaded with occult-based characters because that's the new hotness? Like, is it going to be a weird anti-synergy?
Do you see a lot of that in your tables? People jump at the new hotness?
Advanced class guides dominating my table.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Like, I only have one advanced class guide in all my groups.
Let's see. I've got a swashbuckler. Matt is playing a brawler inquisitor who may have a 3rd class, and it may also be a hybrid class. And Jeff is playing a wizard, but he's using a lot of advanced class options. So he's a bit of an arcanist
Oh, he went with the
an Arcanist
exploiter.
influenced wizard. So that's half my table. And then I've got a fighter, an inquisitor. What is Corey? Corey's a rogue. No, Corey's a ninja. So yeah, advanced class guide came out, and half my table is advanced class characters.
Okay, Kevin Hanley comes to the rescue, saying that the caster Hell Knights are called Hell Knight signifiers.
Yes, they are. Thank you, Kevin Hanley.
Now, I don't usually, my players don't usually go for the new hotness, but I run into a lot of the problems with my groups that everybody sort of has their niche and they like to roll that character. It's like, you know, I got the guy who likes to play rogues and archers. I got the guy who likes to play big, heavy fighters. And I got the guy who likes to play clerics. And I got the guy who likes to play bards. And, like, you know, I might see them, well, this time I'm not a cleric, I'm an oracle. This time I'm not a cleric, I'm a war priest. But, you know, you very similar track. This time I'm not a wizard, I'm a sorcerer. And I imagine this time I'm not a wizard, I'm a kineticist. But, you know, the same with... To risk the fact that Pathfinder has turned every word in the English language into a technical term, these sort of archetypical roles that aren't archetypes but can be played by archetypes seem to follow my group around. And I'm just as guilty as any of them.
No, I think my group is largely the opposite, because whenever a new campaign starts, each individual player will have that moment of, what haven't I played yet?
Oh,
Try to do something very different, at least very different from the last character they played. And I mean, I will almost always play a martial character, but there's a lot of flavors of martial characters out there now.
Okay. Now, getting back on track with the announcements, we had a bit of a debate when we had our what will be the next monster book, and then I posited that there won't be a next monster book because do we really need one? And the answer actually was...
Bestiary 5.
Bestiary 5. Well, I guess it's time for Bestiary 5 because it's alternate, you know. Bestiary 4, weird book. Bestiary 3, weird book. Bestiary 4, weird book. And I guess it's back to Bestiary 5. We have a need for it. You know, they need some occult monsters for sure. And there's been enough adventure paths in the last 2 years to yank those back matter out into hardcover format and fill in the gap. That's the pattern, isn't it?
Fill in the gaps?
Like, you know, grab 2 years worth of AP back matter plus other monsters that appeared in other things, put them into a hardcover with what the next hardcover needs to function equals bestiary.
What's interesting about what we know about Bestiary 5 is that it is covering a lot of material that's okay. We've got aliens coming out, the gray alien. This feels very Numeria, but it also feels a little bit like if we ever have a spacefaring adventure path, they've already got this guy covered. But you know, it's not like we're done with sword and laser now that the Numeria adventure path is done. We've got this guy. We've got new mythic monsters coming out. So even though Wrath of the Righteous is, you know, it's quote unquote done. It's something you could play at any time, but it being the product that's being pushed is done. But a year later, it's still getting some support, which is nice. So yes, we are also getting occult monsters out, but it's not like Bestiary 5 is the occult bestiary. And if it was, I would suggest they call it a grimoire. Just cause. No, we're actually getting a variety of things.
No, it should be a menagerie.
Oh, all right. I'll accept either. What's a grimoire?
A spellbook.
Then I will not accept grimoire. But I will accept the menagerie. But we don't have to because we're not getting an occult bestiary. We're getting Bestiary 5. And it's got flying monkeys. It's got winged monkeys. So there's still things that are just fundamental to, like, this thing's from the Wizard of Oz, which is 100 years old, and it was people were probably writing about flying monkeys before that. We've never had it in a bestiary before. So there's still fundamental monsters that we've never seen before that we're going to get, and that's cool. But not a whole lot was talked about the Bestiary 5 besides, here's a few monsters, we're also going to do mythic and occult. There's not much more we can talk about. Right. Do you expect there to be a lot of monsters, Param?
I expect there to be almost or over 300 monsters.
As do I. Do you think it'll range from CR less than 1 to CR over 20?
I think that it most definitely will. And now
As do
we'll
I.
have mythic ratings added onto them.
Indeed.
I expect that many of these will have extra tentacles.
Extra tentacles. So above and beyond the number of tentacles you usually expect?
Yes, because of the cult.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's not that I'm not excited. It's just there's not a surprise here, except for it exists, and I thought it wouldn't. I'm wrong. I'm often wrong. But then I was then sort of right with the next announcement.
Ultimate Intrigue. I got to stop calling it Complete Intrigue. Ultimate Intrigue is the book that's coming out next. There's new options for skill-based characters. So the Alchemist, Bard, Druid for some reason is on that list. I never really thought of the Druid as a heavy skill-based character. Hunter, Inquisitor, Investigator, Mesmerist, Ranger, Rogue, Slayer, Spiritualist, and more. Yeah, most of those are 4+ intelligence skill-based skill classes. So yes, suddenly it's starting to feel like there's more than just the rogue when it comes to filling the skill niche. There's going to be a new influence system, rules for social combat, and verbal dueling, which are being developed by Mark Seifter, and I got to speak with him briefly about what his design goals are for that. Basically, not just the card game, not just the social combat deck. It's going to be a whole other social combat rule system.
Okay.
And of course, there is the new base class, new base class. It's not an alternate class. It's not a hybrid class. This is a brand new class, the Vigilante.
Now wait a minute. They wrote the Vigilante before.
What?
In Dragon Magazine, while it was under Paizo's hat, they did like a big feature on vigilantes. I remember this because it had one of Ryan Reynolds' most awesome covers ever, a rogue with a repeating crossbow hanging from a building.
I am looking this up. In any case, that just because it's something that was covered in Dragon Magazine, possibly Dragon Magazine 106.
That sounds... Maybe. I don't know what numbers. My knowledge of Pathfinder is expansive. My knowledge of everything ever done by Paizo is not.
Fair enough.
But yeah, like it was. But I also remember that I really, really liked that. It was in the Urban Adventures issue, because that's what it was. The whole issue was about urban adventures, and I just really liked their take on that. And I know that in Eberron they jumped on that and used it a lot, because Eberron was a really pulpy, like Eberron was super pulpy that from start to get. I mean, it honestly felt like it should have been based in the 1920s, Eberron. So they had a lot of vigilante stuff going on in there in their giant cities. So this is cool. I like the idea of a vigilante, though. Again, they'll have to do. Yes, that is the issue, and that is the cover.
It's pretty good looking vigilante right there.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now, I like the idea, but of course I need to see how this is going to be different from all the other classes that are usually used to do this exact same archetype, like Rogue, Urban Ranger, and Investigator.
Jason Bowman did go into a couple of the mechanics. Mm-hmm. One is that in one persona, you will have one alignment, and you will detect as that alignment and everything. And in the other persona, your vigilante persona, you will have another alignment that you detect as. So you will have an alternate, you will have a secret identity. You've just muted yourself. All right. There was every Gen Con and PaizoCon for the last couple of years, they've done a RPG design seminar, which is usually NDA'd, so people are not allowed to talk about it, about what they learned there. This year, it was not NDA'd because the Vigilante playtest will be coming out in the next 2 to 4 weeks.
Oh, right? What?
I know.
Let's hope it's not as lightning fast as the Occult one was, where it's like I barely had time to download the PDF before they closed it.
I know. I want to know if the Vigilante is an appropriate class to make my shipwreck character.
Oh, no.
No?
He couldn't. It's not that his Vigilante persona would be bad. It's that he could never repress it. because he can control himself regardless.
Indeed.
Oh. No, he needs to be a ranger
Oh, interesting.
or a druid.
Druid's a little too far, I think.
I could.
Maybe a
Yeah,
hunter?
ranger, but take the feats to make your animal companion awesome.
Familiar?
But just
Okay.
no, full on animal companion.
Full on. It's Polly, though. He's just a parrot.
Yeah.
All right.
Awesome parrot. No, your character. Play how you want. Yeah, taking the feats to make a familiar would be good. But Ultimate Intrigue.
Yes. Someone on our Facebook page, when we announced Ultimate Intrigue, would have the Vigilante class. They said, but didn't they just say that they wouldn't do another base class for a while? And I believe he's correct. I believe when we had Eric Mona on to talk about Occult Adventures, he was even critical of the amount of base classes they had in the Advanced Class Guide. He was saying, like, we probably could have gone with a few less of those because they didn't really fill a niche. They were more filling a mechanic. And Eric Mona does not like designing for design's sake.
Right. They've always said that they, even before, and it's the reason Advanced Class Guide surprised me, that they would only make classes when they felt there was a hole that needed to be filled in the game that wasn't being met by the other mechanics. Well, not mechanics' sake, but like there's a storyline thing we need to make to work, a character concept that the rest of the rules doesn't work with. It's the reason before they made the swashbuckler, they said, the one thing we would most likely make right now is a swashbuckler because none of the mechanics really work for that. And then lo and behold, we get a swashbuckler. And then, of course, they've been talking for years about how they wanted to do psionics different, and now we have Occult Adventures with this crazy psychic magic stuff. And honestly, I'm hesitant to even use the word psionic in relation to it because it seems to be so off base from that concept. So yeah, they may have said none, and this might be a dig where they have been mistaken. Mm-hmm. But do you think the Vigilante is a need that needed filling?
Not really. While I was still doing the Private Sanctuary, whenever Kathy and I would do the class feature, we had added a section of it called the Batman test. And it asked, how is this class like Batman? And so how is the Alchemist like Batman? How is the Summoner like Batman? How is the Magus like Batman? And we would find some connection between that class and how you can make a convincing version of Batman using only levels of that class. Mm-hmm. So having a Batman class,
this better freaking work.
Yeah, it better work. That's true. I've heard that in the design seminar there were a lot of jokes about having a feat like dead parents, or having starting gold of like 3d6 times a million.
Well, they did say noble in the descriptions that they leaked out. All right. So what else about Occult Adventures? Now, I do like that it sounds like it's a book about not Occult Adventures, Ultimate Intrigue. It sounds like it was a book about a play style. And that seems to be a way that they can go with these hardbacks. Like this was one of my predictions and suggestions last year, was that I lumped this together with Exploring and called it Ultimate Adventure. But this is definitely the kind of direction I wanted to see things go in. And so I'm definitely glad they announced it. So the social urban adventuring mystery type game works. So I like the idea of here's a play style, here's a book that supports that play style. That seems to be a more useful than here's another splat book full of mechanics that may or may not work with each other.
Mm-hmm. Now, it says it's got an influence system and a social combat and verbal dueling system. I believe the influence system is going to work like we've seen in Adventure Paths or possibly the Pathfinder Society, where you had to make a certain number of skill checks, and they can usually be any of the social skills or a skill appropriate to that character. So if it was a character that is like a big game hunter and you walked up to him, made a knowledge nature, and could just talk about where you've heard there were big game, that would be as influential for him as making your diplomacy check.
So how awesome was Influence, that one NPC with all that hunting adventures last time go for you, Ryan?
Last time it went well. The first time it did not.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I've played 2 of those scenarios, one of which I played with Stone Throw, his only social skill is Intimidate. And I never play him like a guy that does a lot of intimidating. Like, he'll do it in combat, but oh man, no, it just felt weird bossing around all of these NPCs, and it was the wrong character for that adventure. But that's the risk you take with Pathfinder Society.
I was referring to the big hunting scenario in Burnt Offerings.
The big hunting scenario in Burnt Offer. Oh yes. Oh no, that went well.
Oh, good.
But I did that as the GM.
Right. Okay. Cool. So, what? Anything else about this that needs the spotlight, or are they still being tight-lipped on a lot of the details?
I think that's basically all the details I have. I did not sit in on the RPG seminars, and I haven't listened to the audio of it yet, so they probably will go into a little bit more detail about that. But it's actually rare that we find out about the first quarter hardcover at PaizoCon. Usually PaizoCon is there to announce the monster book.
Right.
Which is one of the more predictable things. So maybe that's why, or maybe because there's less to say about a monster book.
And they also usually announce the campaign setting hardcover.
That's true, but we've heard that Interseed Races is actually a little behind schedule. So there was no talk about what the next campaign setting hardcover would be.
We already talked about Occult Adventures.
There are a couple of things I do want to point out.
Okay.
One, I said earlier that my kineticist won't be such a one-trick pony anymore.
Right.
It was a 2+ int skill class, and that always bothered me because anyway, usually I consider those the fighter and the wizard are the great examples of 2+ int skill classes because they're both so dedicated to one thing that's not skills. That's all the time they have to put into skills. Whereas it felt like the kineticist, his other job is so easy and kind of comes to him naturally that he would have time for the 4+ int. Well, they gave him 4+ int. So I'm going to be able to do more in the skill version, the skill parts of the adventure, which is good because what I do in combat is pretty straightforward. But also, you've got your, I forget what the mechanic is, but basically your rogue talent, where you take a choice that will adjust your main mechanic, which is your ray attack. They've doubled how many of those you get. So they've added a lot more versatility to the kineticist class, which I am happy with. Param, something you're going to be happy with.
I like happy.
The iconic mesmerist, Lem's brother.
What?
Lem's evil brother.
What?
They were talking about how these classes are diametrically opposed. You would take a bard because he will buff the party. He will help everybody out. He's a support character, but he's positively supportive. The mesmerist is a support character who is negatively supportive. He will show up and he will make the bad guys worse for you. And so they were like, well, the themes are so like it's the same function in the party. So they'll both be competing for the same 5th slot, and it's basically your play style. Are you a nice support character or are you an evil support character? And if you're going to be an evil support character, why not make the iconic evil? And if you're going to make the guy that's at rival with the good support character, why not make him related to that iconic and so that they can actually play this off in stories? And James Mullen was explaining one piece of art where Lem and I forget the character's name, or even if it was revealed, Lem and the iconic mesmerist are like just kind of face to face and angry, but then above them there's like this thought bubble where the mesmerist is terrorizing Lem. Lem's trapped in this room surrounded by 1,000 mirrors, and every other mirror has the mesmerist face on him, just giving him like a scowl. And so that's the relationship Lem has with his mesmerist brother.
That sounds like a very healthy family relationship.
Indeed.
Did he have they look just like Lem but with a goatee?
No, he's actually got a big hat. Most of him is kind of obscured by his clothes, actually. So it's hard to see the family resemblance other than halfling.
Right.
A couple of other things we know about the iconics. The image that I revealed and that I called the iconic kineticist because she's floating off the ground with little things floating around her, and I assumed was the iconic telekineticist, is the iconic psychic. And the iconic kineticist is actually a pyrokineticist, and much to Alex Agunis, the Everyman Gamer on our network, much to he's really happy about the fact that it is actually a child iconic.
That's weird.
Yeah, it is clearly, I believe they said it was a little girl, but it's definitely a prepubescent character. And there was talk about how they would appropriately write this up when they release this as a pre-generated character for Pathfinder Society.
Now, they usually steer away from that in society play because of reasons.
Well, violence against children, death of children if this character dies. Those
Right.
are all real concerns in this slightly more adult fantasy-based thing. But there's the other side of it, though. There is the Harry Potter appeal, where the idea is that you can put yourself in his shoes.
Right.
The Last Airbender is an all-kids cast, and he's actually very much seems to be influenced by Last Airbender.
Right, and society lately with Divergent and Hunger Games and the Maze Runner, they seem to have no problem killing kids anymore.
So by society, you mean society at large, not Pathfinder Society.
Right. So Pathfinder Society, yeah, they love to kill. No. There was a I forget where I read it, but there was like a rule of like, do not write children endangerment tales for PFS scenarios that we do not want them.
Might be a combination of it's too easy and the like, well, we don't want to be known as the child murderers.
Right. Also, they're not the good guys. They're the Pathfinder Society.
Who's not the good guys? The kids?
The Pathfinder Society is not. I mean, they. I guess because Aspis is so evil, they automatically skew good with two good organizations in there. But yeah, they didn't like one of the mentions they mentioned is we don't want to be assume that every adventure is off to do goody two shoes stuff. We have our own theme. It's not save the world. But anyway, I am rambling now. But iconic kineticist pyro. Okay, so obvious fire starter reference is obvious. Still cool. Anything else from that book?
No, I think everything else is stuff we either assumed based on what we're used to from the hardcovers and stuff that's already been announced. Keep in mind, like when we had Eric and Brandon on a few months ago, they went into a lot of detail. Like they revealed the Ghost Rider Prestige class, which was reiterated at the banquet. I think most of what we are expecting from Occult Adventures, none of it was too new, although there was some nice art revealed. That's always nice.
Mm-hmm. This is the first time we got a good look at all the iconics.
Yes, we've previously seen two of them, one of which we all thought was a different iconic.
Right. Okay, now, Ryan, you'll have to... This one I'm still trying to get a gauge on. Why on earth, after several years and died down attention, is my Facebook feed going nuts over a miniature set?
Well, the miniature set in question is the Rusty Dragon Inn.
Okay.
The Rusty Dragon Inn is the inn from Sandpoint, made famous in Burnt Offerings, the first part of Rise of the Rune Lords. So as iconic as the tavern is in fantasy role-playing, this is the first Pathfinder tavern, which makes it above and beyond that much more iconic to Pathfinder players. And it's actually been fairly well developed as far as taverns go. And it's also the first time in Pathfinder battles that we're getting a lot of civilian miniatures. We're going to be getting a waiter. We're going to be getting, I believe, a smith. There were a couple of just generic town folks that were introduced as part of the Rusty Dragon Inn set. And the case incentive figure will not be a figure. Normally, the case incentive figures have been gargantuan figures. More than half of them have been dragons. Then there was the demon whose name I don't remember, and the rune giant.
Discari.
Yes. This set's incentive figure is a tavern. It is parts of a tavern. You've got a bar counter, you've got tables, you've got a cup and cabinet in the back.
Okay, now I want this thing.
I do want this thing. I'm actually not that jazzed about the civilians. I've got the NPC Codex box, and that's provided me with plenty of NPC, like the NPC class section provided me with plenty of regular townsfolk. I will not be upset if I open a random pack that has a couple of townsfolk in it, but I can't think of the townsfolk or the townsperson that I need that I would actually seek out.
Well, I'm glad it's a niche that they're filling, because I know that I know that that's actually a very successful type of miniature that other miniature companies have put out. I've actually bought like packs of townsfolk from Hassle-Free Miniatures. They did some and some Mega Miniatures. They did some packs but they were like dirt cheap. It was like $10 for 20 townsfolk. And then, I've got my townsfolk. And I get a lot of use out of the drunken tavern goer miniature that D&D Minis put out. So it's like the one dude that's like a big fat beer gut dude with a
kind of got the
beer.
sloshing mug. I like that guy.
So, I kind of like it. I kind of dig it. I kind of want the case incentive, but I can't see myself putting down $500 for a whole case of these things.
We do know some of the non-bar related figures. Every single Pathfinder battle set has had a type of creature a 0 hit point monster that they like to put 4 or 5 figures based on that one creature. So we got a lot of goblins. We've gotten orcs in the previous set. This year, this set, we are getting bugbears. We're going to get 4 or 5 different bugbears, probably mostly based on the Monster Codex art. And I'm a big fan of bugbears, and especially now that they can really realize their potential as Boogeyman incarnate. And we're getting ghouls. We were getting multiple ghouls, which I'm less excited about, but they're also just kind of generic baddie-looking things. They're generic enough-looking baddies that they can stand in for multiple humanoid undead.
And Pathfinder has really made a lot more a bigger deal about ghouls than D&D has in the past. I'm looking through several of their adventures in Wrath of the Righteous and several of the Pathfinder Society adventures in Rise of the Rune Lords. The ghoul, they put a lot more focus on, and most importantly, the infectious nature of the ghoul and like its ecology and life. And heck, they even played a major part in Death's Heretic, the novel. So we don't talk about the ghouls a lot, but it does seem to be something that Pathfinder, the Paizo folk, like to write about a lot.
I think it's the tragedy of what turns them evil, combined with the fact that they're intelligent undead, and they get to avoid the stigma of vampires.
Right. Oh, yeah, man. There's a whole... at the end of Wrath of the Righteous, there's some more ghouls that you're going to like. And some really cool stuff there. All right. We got a comment that is apropos. Jacob McKieran says, if I recall correctly, Eric said there wouldn't be a giant amount of classes released again all at once, but there were still ideas that haven't been touched on that could be made into classes. I think he specifically mentioned that there might make an artificer-based class. And Falcon Lars also says, pretty sure Eric said they wouldn't do a big book of classes again.
So there we go. It's one of those times, often when someone says not likely or like less frequent, people take that as no and never. Like people will take a 3/4 of the way to no and make it an extreme no, and 3/4 of the way yes to make an extreme yes. This is just something that confuses a lot of people. It's the reason that a lot of urban legends start. It takes something not absolute and makes it absolute. So I'm guilty of that in this situation, because I do kind of remember when somebody posted on the forums that Eric had said that. I kind of remember him saying there would be no more base classes, but I'm glad these guys were paying a little more attention to Eric than I was, apparently.
Yeah.
Oh, and hey, Darren Caldemeyer, who was one of our MVPs for PaizoCon this year and was our official countdown correspondent. He's concerned about the Vigilante class, as it seems to be unnecessary, more made for formula's sake. I agree it's less necessary than our classes, but man, does it sound fun. Just the fun potential, and if they go a little bit different from the class, especially don't give it sneak attack, keep it away from what makes the rogue, and I think you can have and actually keep it away from what makes the brawler. Keep it as someone who fights close combat, but like using a lot of stealth tactics other than sneak attack. I think there's something that could be there, something that would need more than just an alternate class, or apparently a hybrid rogue brawler class.
You know what I would have liked to see the Vigilante be, and I don't know that they could ever do this, but to sort of make it an archetype for any class to take.
Ooh.
And like maybe use the system that they introduced for the variant multi-class system, to where to become a Vigilante, here's this archetype that has all these abilities, but you give up every other feat.
Oh, okay.
So that'd be a good way to balance it, because it's a mechanic they already used before.
And it uses that secret identity mechanic that Jason already talked about. So it could just mean that anyone could be a cleric by day. And
right.
We're all by night.
We're all fantasy superheroes, more so when you throw Mythic onto the bunch. So like, I am mild-mannered psychiatrist by day, wizard supreme by night. They throw in my strange reference. Now, there is one final thing they announced, yes?
The
No.
advanced class guy, or the
Two things.
adventure card game.
Yes, they announced two things. No, one thing? Yes, one thing. Adventure card game.
The adventure card game, we found out the next set. Now, you and I both speculated what the next set would be the last time Mike Selinger was on. I believe my guess was Kingmaker, just because of demand, and I was curious to see what they would do with this. Do you remember what your guess was?
Reign of Winter.
Ah, yes. Well, we were both wrong.
Right.
It is not going to be in a nice jungle environment. It is not going to be in the Arctic. It is going to be in the desert. We're talking about Mummy's Mask. And
I like it.
Mike Selinger's big selling point on it was that you are just flat out, you're going in there, you're making your profit. And profit and like treasure hunting seem to be a major theme of this set. So we're going to see how that plays out. It didn't get a huge reaction from the banquet hall, but I wonder how many people, because I was talking about that like intimate convention within the convention for the adventure card game. Wonder how many adventure card game fans are less interested in the RPG and think of the banquet as a mostly RPG announcement place.
Right.
So maybe they didn't go in there. So if you watch the video and you see like big applause for something like the Rusty Dragon Inn and then a medium or small applause for Mummy's Mask, it may have just been the audience, because I believe that the adventure card game seminar was actually super enthusiastic about anything Mike Seliger said or did.
Well, we're seeing
whole staff.
We're seeing it ourselves with us. I mean, the adventure card game seems to be this really big, cool thing that is forming into its own audience entirely. Because, like, I'm not into it. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll happily play a game, but I can't dedicate like I do to Pathfinder to do the campaign mode. You like it, similar situation. But then there seems to be whole groups of people that are really into it, and that's their thing. So I think you're right that it's an audience split thing.
Obsidian was actually there demoing. They were calling it a demo, but when I think of a demo, I think something I could play rather than I could watch a video on demo mode. But they had their tablet version of the adventure card game going on big screens in the store.
I got to play that at Gen Con. It was fun.
Well, they've added a map element. And so, when you play the adventure card game, you put all your locations in a circle around the decks. This one will actually have a north and south, and it won't actually matter, but the way it's laid out will be laid out on top of maps. So like Thistletop from Rise of the Rune Lords. Thistletop from Rise of the Rune Lords was the one they were demoing. And the different locations within Thistletop were different locations where they had different location decks. So it's cool. It's cool that there's a little bit. They're definitely playing up the interactivity of it. They're playing up that they have unlimited space because it's digital space, and so they don't have to lay it out in a space-conscious manner. And they had nice cutscenes that were taking dialogue directly lifted from the adventure path. So it's going to be a different experience beyond just being a digital experience than the tabletop version of the adventure card game.
Yeah, when my enthusiasm for the card game itself may be, just warm, I am going to buy this in a heartbeat and every single expansion for it, because this sounds like something I can get into because I can play it at my schedule, my way, and I don't have to worry about the complications that getting a full group together and all that energy takes.
Param, there was one more announcement at the banquet, and it relates greatly to the two of us. We are sharing this year's Volunteer of the Year award for Paizo. Technically, it's the Volunteer of last year. So 2014, we are the Volunteers of the Year. We are each getting one of these plaques. Param, yours is in the mail. We are also each getting one of the Battleforge giant miniature characters, which was apparently a last-minute addition to the Volunteer of the Year award. But beyond that, there's the prestige and just kind of the honor that goes along with being the Volunteer of the Year. And I was actually at a loss for words. So anyone that was there knows that my speech just consisted of saying Pathfinder is awesome and walking away from the microphone, because I was at a loss for words. And I had my face described to me by people that it was one of the highlights of the con for them. And unfortunately, the camera was facing away because I was behind the camera. But what's great is that I watched the video, and the viewer will get to feel like the entire place is turning and looking at them when this is announced. And everyone will get to experience the standing ovation that I got, which may be the only standing ovation I get in my life. Standing ovations apparently are really thrilling. It was a really cool experience. And actually, I'd forgotten about the Volunteer of the Year award until it was announced. And I didn't really suspect it might be us until right before Eric announced it, when he said that this year we're giving away to 2, and one of them is not here. And I was like, well, Param and I fit that bill. And yeah, indeed, it was us. People were thanking us for largely for the seminar coverage that we give out, which is just amazing. Because to me, I think this is free coverage. This is free content for us. In fact, the day after the banquet, I gave Alex Agunas one of our recorders, and he was like, I just hope they don't think I'm being a bother. And I'm like, Alex, they gave me a plaque yesterday for being a bother. Like, they are as happy to give us this content as we are to share the content with the community. But yeah, apparently Paizo thinks of us as pillars of the community and really people that are supportive of the Pathfinder role-playing game.
I was completely surprised by this. I didn't even get the 5-minute warning that you got. When I saw this, I completely humbling. I am very glad. We talked about this before, that we keep forgetting to submit for the Annies, or we get Annie snubbed, and like the first thing I said is like, this means more to me than the Annie ever would. So thank you, Paizo, for it. Thank you, everybody who supports us. This is my chance to say Pathfinder is awesome. That was awesome. I don't know what else to say about it. Though I do find it ironic that we talked about that we're getting the bags, and the episode we talked about the bags is, what in the world would we use these things for, Ryan?
Yeah, we were both like, oh, well, these bags exist, but do we really need them? Well, now we've both got them. We're both going to get to review them, which will be an honest review. I mean, it's cool that we're getting them for free, but we will still say, if we don't need them, we don't need them.
We often get product for free, guys. We don't disclose it super often, but we often get product for free, and it doesn't buy us our reviews. We've given bad reviews to free product before, more than we like to do. And actually, that's the problem, was when we buy something for ourselves and it sucks, we don't feel bad about skipping it, because like, I don't want to waste our viewers' time ranting about something I didn't like. But when somebody sends us a book, we have to review it, and then when it's a bad review, it's not fun.
Well, I will say this: if I don't feel like I'm actually going to make use of this really cool, really expensive product, I am more than happy to set up some kind of contest. And if by the end of the year I haven't used it to what I feel it's its full potential, I am willing to share the wealth and give it away as a prize. I mean, it didn't cost us anything, and I know there are people that go to a lot of cons and would really make a good use out of this. So if somebody else feels like, in fact, maybe that'll be the contest, and I'm not announcing it yet because I'm not sure I want to part with it yet, and I don't have it here because I had to have it shipped back. Paizo was willing to ship it to me too, which is really nice because they have to ship internationally for me.
Oh yeah.
But my thought is that maybe it'll be an essay writing contest where people have to give me their case. Why? Well, there we go. Maybe we'll call it the Give Me the Case contest. And I'm getting way ahead of myself because I'm not sure I'm giving this away yet.
Right. Well, yeah. That sounds cool. I would be hard to part with it, even if I hate it, because it's just the sentimental value of what it is.
Well, this is the sentimental value. This is something that my name is on this. This is going up on the game shelf. Yeah. We will see.
Yeah. The very first thing I'm going to do is pull out one half of those rows and see if I can slide books in the other.
You absolutely can.
Oh, you can?
You can.
Yes,
you definitely can.
Then my biggest concerns about this case are alleviated, because I'm like, if it is not the right size to slide the book in that half, then it fails for its purpose. But if it does, it's good for its purpose.
Well, now, wait a second. Does the orientation matter? Because you can stand the book up. Or you can take 2 slots out and slide it and lay it flat. Anyway, we'll review this product once both of us have it in hand. But it's a very versatile carrying case. So if there's some need you have, I have a feeling it would fill it.
Yeah. Well, I need a case. You've seen my the audience has seen me test out gaming cases on several occasions. So this one will be put through the ringer too. Mm-hmm. Though it'll be hard to beat the giant craft case because that seemed to be the perfect case. But it's cool. All right, we've been talking too much about the case. This was. I do
want to say, I regret my speech or lack thereof because there are a lot of people that I think we really should bring attention to. Mainly our con volunteers. Because we got a lot of credit for it, but every year at the conventions we hand out a bunch of recorders and they go and do the legwork for us while we sit and chat with people or play games or something. Or we also attend our own seminars, but we aren't doing all of the work that earned us this reward. So I know Justin Sluter, for example, has recorded like 4 or 5 years in a row. Darren Kaldemeyer, he made those countdown cards for us, and he was willing to let us put them up on our site. He was our countdown correspondent this year, but for the last at least 3 or 4 PaizoCons, he has been more than happy to take a recorder, do his duty, recording everything that he can. Sarah Bull, who was my roommate this year, she has done a lot of recording for us. And especially she records a lot of the card game stuff, which she is more than happy to go and attend. Mm-hmm. And that's something that we may have had to like slip in, put a recorder and slip out because you and I are, you know what, Mike Selinger is amusing enough. But anyway, there are some seminars that are of less interest to us, but are of interest to our audience and are of interest to specific members of our audience that are already planning on attending them. And so they help us expand the amount of content that we get for these conventions.
Right. And at Gen Con, the Gen Con recordings, usually I am the one there doing the recordings, but I couldn't do it without Michel Lepage because without his assistance at the last 2 Gen Cons, it would have been impossible to juggle all that equipment and all that recording and just making sure all the seminars got covered. So even in the cases where we are covering the seminars ourselves, the assistance we get and help we get from the crew made it possible where it wouldn't have been.
And I think like we could thank all of the Paizo staff because we love them and we get to talk to them and that's amazing. But I think we really do want to talk about Jenny Bendel.
Yeah, she is amazing.
Yeah, Jenny coordinates most of our interviews. Sometimes when they have something they want to talk to us or they want to talk to the community about, she comes to us. And other times when we want to talk to somebody, we send an email to her, and she is like super enthusiastic about us. I was talking to her one time at a con, and she was just like, she's in marketing, and we are the exact people that marketing people like. We are people that are like a good go-between we're an unbiased community source that will also, we pull punches. Well, we don't pull punches, but we also are very polite when we talk to the Paizo staff. We acknowledge how to talk to somebody, which is something that not everyone online knows how to do.
Right.
And I mean, yeah, so without just the way that we produced our shows and planned our shows completely changed when Jenny came on board in the position that she is in. And she has given us so much more access to the Paizo staff than we ever had before, and she has made that access so much easier than it ever was before. And so above and beyond all Paizo staff, Jenny shares this Volunteer of the Year award with us.
I don't mind letting our listeners know that before Jenny, we would contact the people directly, and that was when Paizo was small, and that's what they encouraged us to do. When I wanted to interview Lisa Stevens, the CEO, I would email Lisa Stevens and say, "Can I interview you?" And I that is a scary prospect nowadays with how big they've gotten. And then when she was first announced, we were terrified. We thought that means, they're going to cut us off. We're never going to see a person again. And then it has been the exact opposite. So thank you, Jenny. You have been a lifesaver.
Yeah. So it's cool, Param. It's cool that we live in a world where we get to have awesome conversations with people we admire and share it with the community we love, and that we are apparently a big deal because of it.
Awesome. Okay. But we weren't the biggest deal at this convention by any means. They had some special guests lined up.
Indeed. So this year is a big occult year. And for the same reason we had him on the podcast a couple of episodes ago, Brandon Hodge was one of the guests of honor. And Brandon Hodge is many things. He is a prolific writer of adventure paths and campaign setting material. And I believe he's also done some hardcover. Yeah, he's done rules work. He's done any kind of freelancing besides the fiction writing. Brandon Hodge has done it. But the man is also an occultist in the most real world definition of the term. He collects Ouija boards and all kinds of occult paraphernalia, much of which he brought to the occult seminar and had with him at his table for any of the signing sessions. And he's got a whole bunch of weird little trinkets, things you have only heard about in ghost movies. He's got them. He can explain their exact origin. He can explain any of the ones that were considered more of a con and ones that were more believed to be real. He's got a great head for it and a passion for it. And so with the Occult Adventures coming out soon, he was a great person to have as a guest of honor. I know some people were like, Brandon Hodge is the guest of honor, but he's someone we get to see every year anyway. But he played a different role this year than he did when he shows up as guest and freelancer Brandon Hodge. He brought legitimacy to Occult Adventures, both the hardcover that's coming out and as a representative of that book at PaizoCon.
Now, this is a seminar I look very, very forward to listening to. I've not got to listen to the seminars yet, and that one I'm super excited about. And Brandon Hodge, we're a huge fan of him all around. And I saw a lot of pictures of that table. Yeah, and a lot that seems like be like everybody got a picture of that table if they went to PaizoCon. I mean, that is like the stormtrooper outfit of PaizoCon. You must get a picture of. Did you try on any of the weirdness?
No, because I break things, Param.
Okay.
These are destructive hands, and I did not want to touch rare occult things and risk breaking them and costing Brandon money and then myself because I would pay for them, and also potentially getting an evil spirit to follow me home.
Are you saying that they used to be big, strong hands?
They're still big, strong hands. Especially with this camera. Wow, look at the size of my hand.
All right, so who else?
Curtis Weeb. This was a surprise. He was not announced as a guest, and I don't even know how much of a guest, how far in advance Paizo knew that he was coming. But the writer of Rat Queens was there for a day. He was only there on Friday, but he ran some delves. And what was really cool is that Crystal Frazier wrote up 6 pre-generated characters based on characters from the Rat Queens comic. If you don't know Rat Queens, you need to be reading Rat Queens. It is a fantasy comic book. It's funny, but it's not satire. It's played straight. It's played as straight fantasy. It's got a vulgar side to it. Excuse me. It turns a lot of tropes on its head. It's got like a weird but like really appealing vibe. Like one of the other adventure parties is just called the Daves. And it's 4 adventurers who all happen to be named Dave. And so they talk about Half-Orc Dave and some of the other Daves in the Dave party. And it's just like, I don't know why, but I love the Daves. And we've barely seen anything about the Daves, but we know that it's 4 guys named Dave who adventure together. And that's all I need to love these guys as NPCs. Excuse me. So I already had a game scheduled because I had no idea Curtis Weeb would be there. Otherwise, I would have, even if I couldn't play at the Delve, would have just watched him. Because if the way he GMs is anything like the way he writes fantasy, I'm sure that was a highlight of the con for those people.
Now, I have not read Rat Queens, but I have seen
you've got to read Rat Queens.
A lot of art, and I want to read Rat Queens. So, okay, definitely putting this on the go get now list, which is good because I'm deeply disappointed in comic books lately. So this might be a way for me to continue to enjoy comic books.
And finally, the artist guest of honor was Jason Engel. Jason Engel's done a lot of the covers for Pathfinder Adventure Paths and the hardcover line. And Param, the fact that I am out of things to say about him makes me realize one of our failings as a podcast. We have never had an artist guest. The closest we've had is Crystal or Liz, who do art on the side, but that is not their main function in the community. Actually, you know what? I take it back. Hugo Solis was the last artist we had on the podcast, and that was, I'm going to say, 50 years ago.
Right.
So
it was before you had me as a co-host.
Wow. Yes, it is. So we're overdue to talk to some artists about some art stuff, Param.
Yeah. And this makes me feel bad because one of the panels we cut from last year's coverage, occasionally a panel goes south and it's just not a good listen. And well, I hate to say this, but if we release bad content on our show, our audience numbers drop and it hurts us. So so every now and then, when a panel that we record and have every intention of publishing is just not good listening, then we cut it. And the one we cut last year was the art panel.
Right, because it was about submitting art to Paizo, but everyone that was there was expecting it to be talking about trivia or something. Like it was
the other way.
The other way? Okay.
It was all about the process of the art.
Oh, okay.
And what made it in the books, and everybody there wanted to know about how they get in. And like it was like people walked out of the panel, and it was like I never saw anybody walk out of a Paizo panel before.
Mm. And last year's PaizoCon, they also had an artist guest of honor who I don't remember his name, but he wrote he drew the cover. See, I don't even know what the proper term is. He arted the cover of Emerald Spire, and I videotaped it because I thought maybe there would be a visual element of it. But what I did not do is record the audio of it, and the audio was garbled. I was too far away, and so you couldn't actually hear anything that was said. So we've got 2 art panels that by coincidence have never been released because of various reasons. And we've never had an artist, or it has been too long since we've had an artist guest on the show. So I think we owe it to the fact that Paizo and Pathfinder has gorgeous art. It is one of the selling points of the product, and we have completely unrepresented it. So this is something that in the near future we have to resolve.
Yes, we must get artists, and not just Wayne Reynolds, though. Getting Wayne Reynolds on would be awesome.
Let's build up to Wayne Reynolds.
Yeah, but I interviewed him that first year.
Did you?
Yeah, for that when I wasn't even part of the show yet, and you just sent me out in the world as a fan.
Okay.
That first Gen Con, and the dude is fantastic to talk to.
Yeah, a lot of the things that we consider defining elements of the Iconics, he made up, and he can totally justify. He can justify Harsk's teacup. Kettle. He can justify Valeros's mug. The
scars on Kira, or not Kira, Amiri.
Oh,
the scars on her midriff. He has those because not wearing armor is not really such a good idea down there sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but on the other hand, people have criticized that Amiri is like a little bit cheesecake, and he's like, no, her fighting style, she would need to have as much freedom around the abs so that she can get the big, and he'll like demonstrate exactly like how she would attack and why it makes sense that she wouldn't have armor there. Like he really thinks his stuff through. So not only does he deliver a concept very well, he conceives a concept very well. All this to say, you would rather hear it from him directly, and we are going to try and get him. And there we go. Scott Fernandez says the correct term is illustrated. Thank you, Scott. One of the reasons that we have not had enough artists is because I don't feel I speak art, and I don't want the whole thing to be about correcting the terms that we use. But still, that is not a reason to keep them from expressing themselves and keep them from you guys as an audience.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that does it for PaizoCons from your point of view, Ryan, or at least everything you've put on this nice handy outline. But what about the audience? What do you guys want to know about PaizoCon or the products that were announced? Do you guys have any questions for us? Now's the time to get those in.
So while they do that, I will talk about one of my favorite seminars and one of the surprises at PaizoCon, because I didn't even realize this was happening until the Welcome to PaizoCon seminar, which I guess I'll talk about briefly first. For the first year ever, they did a Welcome to PaizoCon panel, and it basically was just Eric Mona reading from the program and then saying why those things were cool and why you should go to them. And it was mostly aimed at people that had never been to PaizoCon before, but even I discovered a new thing. The last character standing, which was a tell me about your character gong show. There was a panel of Paizo staff judges. It included Owen Casey Stevens, John Compton, and Liz Courts, and was hosted by Joe, whose last name I don't know right now. He is one of the new editors. He's been at Paizo for about a year. And actually, I had 4 or 5 interactions with him, and he's a fun guy. He and I got along very well. Maybe we'll have an episode on editing just so that I can talk to him again. Anyway, the original idea was that a room full of people would each get a chance to go up to the front, start talking about their character, and as soon as it got boring, Owen had he had a tiny bicycle bell that he would ring like this when you got boring. And that would be your gong. That would be the, we're not even going to judge you. You got boring. Please go sit down. Next person comes up. The problem was only 4 people attended this seminar.
Oh,
actually 6 people, but one of them works for Paizo and one of them had no interest in actually talking about characters. He wanted to hear people talking about their characters. So they changed some rules on the fly. It turned into like a mini seminar at the beginning where they talked about what makes an intriguing character and then specifically how to present your character in a way that makes him interesting. And a lot of it was like, you know, you have to deliver what the core concept is about your character right off the bat, but you also have to show how your character is different from other characters that have a similar core concept. And all 3 of them went into some nice details. Then they decided instead of 1 character, it would be 2 rounds. And whoever got the highest score of their 2 higher rounds. So it wasn't a cumulative thing. You could have 1 good round, 1 bad round and still win. And what was really fun to watch was the evolution of the delivery. So I went first and I talked about Thundy and I said she was born a gnome, died a gnome, was reborn a half-orc, and then just talked about all the things she loved about being a half-orc, that she now could reach things that were high up, that she had to memorize people's eyebrows instead of their nostrils. That things you can chew with tusks, Param. So I did that, and I got a pretty decent score, but I got criticized by Liz Courts. She says she's a very visual person, and I did not deliver any visual information about the character. She said, like, does he dye his hair like a gnome would? Like, what am I looking at when you're talking? And so the next person that came up included a lot of visual stuff. Maybe they would have anyway, but there was like, people were learning from the judges' comments.
Oh.
And so the person who ended up winning was the second to last person to go. And by then we were all doing character voices. We were going into a lot of in-depth history. And actually there were one of 2 things. Either it's a really strong concept, which like Thundy would be. She would be completely about concept. Or it's a character that's been on a really interesting journey. So my second character I talked about was Kark. And I talked about, and I was talking in the Kark voice because you can't talk about Kark without Kark voice. And I was talking about how Kark swore to protect his gnome community, except for he's a giant slayer, but he hates only 2 things more than giant slayers: commitment and gnomes. And so I talked about how he was always using it as an excuse to go on adventures. And then I talked about the adventures. So one of them was really about the character. One of them was really about their story. And the last person, just like he and the eventual winner, was in character, like speaking in the voice from the character's point of view, was being nuanced. So you didn't really know what was fact, but you wanted to know. And like he set up an expectation that you wanted fulfilled. And it was a really intriguing, it was almost like he was GMing a session for us. And this was a really important NPC in that session. So he won a box set of Wrath of the Righteous, which may have been signed by the adventure card game design team. I'm not sure. But I hope that they aren't discouraged by the low attendance of this seminar. And I hope they do it again next year. And I hope by next year, word will get out that this was a lot of fun. And it was something that everyone who went to PaizoCon, except for 5 people, missed. So that's something that you should prioritize for next year, because it had a 2-hour time slot. I think they really had high hopes for it. And I think we ended after 45 minutes because after doubling the amount of entries that you were allowed and adding a seminar to it, it still was only 2 minutes each with a couple of minutes for judging. So, Param, we have exactly 1 question so far. It's from Darren Caldemeyer, No Directions PaizoCon Countdown correspondent. He wants to know if you will attend PaizoCon next year.
I don't know. Like, I really would have loved to attend PaizoCon this year. It sounds like PaizoCon is becoming more of an interest to me than Gen Con has becoming. So I don't know. It's a higher percentage than it has been in years past.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I'll get more out of it than I will at Gen Con. But you have to understand, for me, that's going to be a binary choice. It's one or the other.
Yeah, and I know Gen Con has a lot of, well, it's got convenience for you. It's a drive up instead of a flight.
Mm-hmm.
And it's already part of your social calendar. So you would have to be sacrificing something that it's the devil you know versus the devil you don't. I guess more of the angel you know versus the angel you don't. You know how much fun Gen Con could be. And I had to explain this several times over the weekend because people were constantly asking, where's Param? Is Param here? Has Param ever come to PaizoCon? And it's like, here's the completely valid reasons that, still kind of sucks for you right now because you want to meet Param, and it's unfortunate that he's not there.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I really wish I could go. It's all about scheduling time and money. And at any given year, one of those things won't line up.
Mm.
But I can guarantee myself to go to one convention a year, and so I usually, since I know Ryan is doing the PaizoCon, I usually and will be eaten by Gen Con by his day job. I usually choose the Gen Con so that the podcast can be represented fully there, or at least that's been my excuse the last couple of years. And before that, it was simply because it's the con I can bring my little brother to. If I go to PaizoCon, I can't bring my little brother to it. But I have a higher percentage chance of going there this time, especially since lately the Gen Con's Paizo track has become more and more focused to people that aren't us.
Yeah, it's become a little bit more predictable.
Mm-hmm. It's not just predictable. It's like before, Gen Con's coverage was basically like PaizoCon Redux.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of the same concepts, a lot of the same, hey, we're preaching to the choir, here's the really nuanced, in-depth stuff. And last year, these seminars, it was almost like Pathfinder was launching for the first time again. Here's new, and they were assuming a generation that hadn't been following the game like all since its existence, and like actually, doing their jobs as somebody representing their product to a massive audience that may or may not be dedicated to them, as opposed to something like PaizoCon where they know that the audience is dedicated to them. So like last year at the seminar coverage, I was like, wait a minute, this is the same sort of stuff they were doing 5 years ago, and we're getting the same questions. And I felt old. I was like, back in my day when we asked a question about alignment, we at least had the darn Constitution to ask it correctly without mentioning the paladin. Anyway, and that's how I felt. But so if it's like that again this year, that strongly increases my chance that PaizoCon will be my choice next year.
Now, there's a very good chance I return to PaizoCon next year, but I'm kind of at the point that if Tina doesn't come with me next year, I don't know if I'm going to go. And I will probably go next year. This will probably be more of a debate for the following year because I don't want to get the Volunteer of the Year award and then disappear. Thanks, I got everything I wanted out of this. Suckers.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, no, I definitely... I love going to PaizoCon. It's just gotten to the point that it's like, man, I wish Tina was here. It would be great to be sharing these things with Tina. She would love this stuff.
You and your fulfilling family life and significant others.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm sorry, Param. That's just the situation I'm in.
It's a good situation to be in. Awesome. All right, so let's wrap this up because it doesn't look like you got any more questions.
All right. Let's just confirm that with one last refresh. Nope. All right. So we will be right back with, do you want to do the news?
No, let's wrap it up.
Sexiest news.
Yeah.
All right. We'll be right back to wrap things up right after this, guys. Ready?
Ready.
3, 2, 1. Thank you for joining us for another episode of No Direction, the Pathfinder News, Reviews, and Interviews podcast. Before we go, there's a couple of things that we would like to bring your attention to. The first one, I do want to reiterate that we had another really great con team, KD con team for PaizoCon. I haven't mentioned Rich Flynn yet, but Rich recorded a whole bunch of the seminars that you will be listening to over the next month. Sarah Bull, I've mentioned. Darren Caldemeyer was another ace. Alex Agunas, the Everyman Gamer, at his first PaizoCon was also attending several seminars and was good enough to record things for us. Shoot. There's got to be more than that. Me. Justin Sluder lent us one of our recorders, which is good because we were actually short a recorder this year. And if Justin hadn't done that, we would not have gotten as many recorders as we would have. Oh, Param, we didn't even talk about the No Direction Live seminar.
No, we didn't.
All right, I'm going to take a minute to talk about that. So one time before at PaizoCon, I hosted a seminar, and it was the Fan Initiatives seminar, and it was me, Tim Nightingale, who started PaizoCon, and it was the editor-in-chief of Wayfinder, was then and is still now. We had John Reist from PFSRD. We had Ted Thompson from Pathfinder Chronicler. We had Alex Greenshields from the Pathfinder Wiki. Yeah, I think that was it. There were 5 of us on the panel. I assumed if each of us brought 5 fans, then there would be a decent-sized audience. And I just remember there being like 15 people and being pretty bummed that like this was like this great collection of people, all of which were passionate, all of which were community based, and it didn't feel like a lot of people went. So it's one of the reasons that we've never done another panel. But this year, I don't know why I did it, but I decided that this year is the time we would try again, and it would be the No Direction Live panel. And there would be a panel of rotating guests, which was supposed to be announced ahead of time. But the last couple of weeks before PaizoCon, I just felt like PaizoCon was a future Ryan problem. Not problem, but like the prep for it was a future Ryan problem. And then when I became future Ryan and like nothing was prepped, I was like, well, that's going to be another empty seminar. I at least managed to get in the last week 5 guests, but I did not announce who those guests were anywhere. So the only people that were showing up for the seminar were people that were there for No Direction and the promise of guests. But we ended up filling the room. I wouldn't be surprised if there were 50 people at our seminar. It really surprised me. This was before we got Volunteer of the Year. So up until that point, this was the highlight for me. This really felt like, oh, good, we mean something to people. And that's nice. And then we ended up having Monica Marlowe, this year's RPG Superstar. We brought her up, and we had what felt like just a montage of interviews. Everyone got 10 minutes. We got a little jokes in. We got some updates since the last time we talked to them. And then we sent them on their way. Then we talked to Jason Nelson and Rachel Ventura, who are behind Legendary Games, with Neil Spicer, but Neil had to be running a Legendary Games adventure at the time, so he wasn't available to join us, but 2/3 of Legendary Games joined us. And actually, it was surprising that Jason Nelson kind of picked up on what Monica Marlowe had been saying about RPG Superstar, because Jason was one of the top 4 in the first RPG Superstar. So he actually spent a good portion of his time promoting RPG Superstar and giving people advice on how they themselves could become a proper RPG Superstar or a good freelancer. After that, Mike Selinger joined us. And I think Mike just loves us. I don't know, I think Mike's the kind of guy that just likes us. He doesn't he likes getting the message out there, but he likes being on the podcast for us, Param. And in this case for Alex too. And man, he really hit Alex with a zinger when Alex asked why there are no Kitsune in the adventure card game yet, which I will leave to people to listen to the seminar to know why there are no Kitsune in the adventure card game. After that, we got 2 guests that have never been on the podcast before, and that was one of my intentions. I wanted, it's amazing that we have full access to Paizo. It's amazing that now we don't have to find third-party publishers to come on the show and tell us about things. They come to us and tell us that they're interested in talking on our podcast. But what's happened now is that in a year where we have whatever we have, like 25, 26 episodes a year, we will talk to 20 people we've already talked to before and hopefully fit in a few people that we've never talked to before. And I miss that. I miss meeting new people, finding out about new things that are going on in the Pathfinder community. So I intentionally made sure that at least a couple of people on the panel we had never talked to before. So I talked to Eric Boxhead Hindley, who was an RPG Superstar finalist this year and has several writing credits to his name, and Caleb T. Gordon, or Jordan, either way, it's not his real name. So anyway, he's with Flying Pincushion. They are a third-party publisher that until he volunteered to come on our podcast, I had never heard of. And until he was sitting on the panel, I didn't know what they did. They have an emphasis right now on making archetypes for the NPC classes to really diversify your world and the NPCs, the important NPCs in it. So that is one of the seminars that will be available. We have video footage of that one. We have video footage of more seminars than usual. Not all of which have a visual element, so it's just for fun. You get to see instead of just hear this time sometimes. But there are some things I've learned from this. There are some things that I would do differently next time. Like we left no time for people to just ask me questions, me and Alex. It was actually, or anyone questions. It was completely a people are watching us talk to these people, and then we're sending people on their way thing. So in the future, a little bit more time between guests, a little Q&A, and to keep in mind that apparently people like us enough to attend these seminars just based on the fact that No Direction's name is on it, and to let them talk to us and make that an important element of it, and at least give people 5-10 minutes to ask their questions. But I say when we do it again and not if we do it again, because this, I would say this was a rousing success, Baron.
Oh, excellent. Sounds awesome. Did we get a recording of our own seminar?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, good. All right. Now, I want to take this opportunity to recruit.
Ooh.
Because Gen Con is just around the corner, guys. And the PaizoCon team, we love you guys. We need help at Gen Con too. Simply because there are seminars we won't be able to make if we don't get assistance. And also, Gen Con is crazy, and I need help. I need lots of help. So if anybody is willing to help us out at Gen Con and join the con team there, we would really appreciate any volunteers that would step up to the plate. Just contact us on our Facebook page or email us at nodirection@hotmail.com with your intentions to help us out. And we will be so appreciative that you will be able to do so.
Yeah, we just need someone sometimes to go into a seminar when it's done and grab the recording for us.
Yeah, like
we don't
literally
need people to go to seminars they might not normally have, but just put it on the table at the end of the seminar, start it again and leave if there's another seminar after it, or go collect it and at a later point at the con, give it back to us.
Yes, I mean, it's that simple. Push the record button, set it down. We will hopefully warn them who is our assistants. There's last year I made a little placard card for our recording device that we put it in, like, this is the No Direction recorder. So I will have one of those again so that they know you're not just some crazy kooky person trying to record them. But honestly, there's like a half a dozen of those recorders on that desk at any given time anyway. So yeah, it's super easy. All you have to do is press a button and then meet back up with us and give us the recorder. That's the really important part. Is we need those recorders back. Not so much for the cost of the recorder, though we can't afford infinite recorders, but mainly because those seminar recordings are irreplaceable, and we need those files badly. And not every year are they going to let me re-record interviews like they did the one year.
Oh, yeah.
I feel so horrible. Oh. But they were good sports. They let us do the interview completely over again, and it was better the second time.
I'm going to point people to nodirectionpodcast.com, where Alex Agunas has a blog post about his first PaizoCon experience. So this was one of my favorite PaizoCon. This might have been my favorite PaizoCon. It's hard to beat this year's PaizoCon, honestly, for me. But it's cool to see, like, I can compare it to past PaizoCons and be like, oh, it doesn't have that community feel. Whereas this is Alex's first PaizoCon, so he can tell you from someone that's never been to another PaizoCon, can't compare it to others, what was it like for him? I also want to give people, give a shout out to a really interesting Kickstarter that's going on now. Polyhero Dice, the Warrior Set. Param, have you checked this out yet?
I have pledged for this already.
All right. Do you want to summarize what it is then?
Okay, these are weird-looking dice that look like fantasy elements. So the D4 looks like a dagger, and the D6 looks like a sword. And I'm sitting here instantly complaining that the D6 sword should be a D8 sword.
I said the same thing.
Should be the D6. But they have a mace that's the D8, and basically they look like they're dice that kind of look like these objects, and you roll them and they look cool. Now I pledged for them because they look cool and I hope they work well as dice. I do hesitate a little bit. I think all of them will work fine except the D12.
And really?
The D12, because I bought a set of those crystal cast dice where they were all those little crystals that they made. Okay. And once you got above the D10, they weren't balanced anymore, and they would not roll randomly. They would settle on 4 or 5 numbers that they favored. So I'm hoping that that they've got that problem solved, and these are actually true random dice. But if there was one dice in a set that you needed to be a bum dice, it's the D12.
Fair. I've heard about the D20. The D20 is a giant shield, but it looks more like a UFO, and that's a bummer. It's kind of the boss of the set, and it's the only one that I'm disappointed in. The D12 actually looks really cool to me. It's based on a helm, and it kind of rolls like a cylinder, with like just the 12 facings that really just round out the helmet. And it does have a visor in there that actually apparently goes towards the weighting of it to randomize it, according to one of the videos. Yeah, thank you, Param. There we go. So my favorite is the percentile is a pair of gauntlets, and they look amazing. Oh man. If I can only get one type of die in the set, I would try and get the 2D12, the 2D10s, because look at those. And actually in the picture, it shows them both having single digits, but actually in the video, if you watch it, the sample dice that they printed out actually has double digits on one and single digits on the other, like a proper percentile die.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, these look cool. I hope they happen. Like, we can't give this a super endorsement because we don't know the people behind it, all that jazz. But that's why it's here in the shout-outs instead of anywhere else. So it looks cool. We both hope it comes out. And I have pledged. Have you pledged?
I only found out about it today. It's got 14 days to go. I kind of want to see. They don't have any stretch goals right now. They said in a follow-up video that the most likely thing they would add would be the ability to buy extra D6s. So you can get a 3 or 4 D6 set along with one of everything else. And the possibility of different sizes, different colors, but nothing's official yet. And I'm not sure if I'm sold on either the red or the black. The black looks a little too sci-fi for me, and the red looks a little too plain for me. So I'm interested in this. I think it's cool. I always like sharing when something is different and really creative. I haven't pledged yet. One thing, though, that I do have more personal experience with is Legion of the Cow. Legion of the Cow is a miniatures design studio that also has an in-house store, and they have a pretty awesome sale right now. So you can buy a set of 9 high-quality miniatures. If you want to screen share and click on that first one.
Find it.
You know what? I can screen share. So look at these miniatures.
Are you screen sharing?
Mace? Yeah. Sorry. I forgot to click share. There we go. So you've got this cleric with the flaming mace.
Oh, these are super dynamic. For those of you that are on the audio podcast, these are very, very super detailed miniatures that are a lot more dynamic and a lot more realistic proportions than you see. Often with miniatures, they over-exaggerate the weapons and armor so that you can see them in a table play, because you need to be able to see the paint job, and some of these smaller details gets lost at the table play. So I'm kind of appreciative that what we're seeing are very proportional, very detailed, small items. Also, women that aren't wearing boob plate. So very realistic armor.
Mm-hmm. All right, are you ready for the real winner, Param?
Uh-huh.
So check out this wizard.
Holy goodness.
He's got his spell book down here that has some kind of plume of smoke coming from it. And then on another one, he has a plume that looks like it ends in a crystal ball, and he's levitating off the ground. It is just one of the... This is just such an amazing, dynamic, and yet so simple. His pose is actually pretty straightforward, but there is so much going on in this miniature. And if you get this set, you get the 9 miniatures for $90, whereas they usually go for $150. And apparently there's only 25 sets still available.
Oh, well, move quickly.
Yeah.
If this is something that you're interested in.
Now, I've worked with Legion of the Cow on a project that I cannot announce right now. So I do know that these are cool guys. They deliver really quality products. I actually have this guy, the Screaming Orc Chieftain. Actually, I may have the cleric with the flaming mace. I'll have to double check. I haven't done anything with them, but I can vouch for the quality. I can vouch that you are supporting a really talented artist and a really cool guy. And if you don't want the set, he's also got a 25% off store-wide. So if you just want to get one of them, such as if you just want to get this awesome miniature that is usually $20, you can get it for 25% off, which still makes it about a $15, $16 miniature. So it's still cheaper to get it if as part of the 9 figures for $90, except that it's actually more money, but it becomes a $10 figure. And I fully expect to see at least a couple of this guy showing up in Pathfinder Society in the near future.
Mm-hmm. Now with miniatures that are this detailed, I often get intimidated because, like, when they look this good, you're kind of, oh gosh, I must paint this to be awesome.
Okay, I thought you were saying like you were worried that it would break. And I'm just posting a link to the Legion of the Cow in the chat right now. And Jesse Davis did us the favor of posting the Polyhero Dice Warrior set.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As far as breakage goes, these are resin miniatures. They're not metal miniatures, but the quality is they're fine. They don't have any more breaking points than a Bones figure. God, I love that wizard.
You just wanted to show off that wizard.
I did. I don't even play wizards, but I would play a wizard to use that mini.
Well, honestly, it could be a kineticist, and that's just the book of occult secrets.
Could it pass for a half-orc, Baron? No, but you know what? This could be... No, but that could be an air kineticist. Like, depending on what color you paint the plumes, that could be multiple different... Like, that could be fire, that could be water, that could be air. Mm-hmm. It would be a stretch to be earth, but it could be ether, force, the telekineticist.
Well, that's what green stuff is for.
You don't even need green stuff for that. As long as you don't want an earth elemental or a earth kineticist. What is that guy called again? Doesn't matter. As long as you don't want that breed of telekineticist or that breed of kineticist, this could be any of them, or a lot of the occult classes. Mm-hmm. Oh man, Param. Everyone needs to own this miniature.
Oh, I'm glad you're
not like Squilly Nord awesome, but it's a pretty awesome miniature.
So almost as awesome as Squilly Nord. That's a great endorsement.
There we go.
All right, so I have ordered my Conjura. Have you? So what is this deal with these Conjuras?
The deal is that I promised to make a folder with the pictures by now, and although I've taken pictures of my in progress as I was assembling him, I have not touched my Conjura since his leg fell off. And so I have no new pictures to update, and I haven't made a folder for some reason of the pictures that I already have done. So on the list of things to do, we've got the Millinarstead Adventure is the highest one. One thing I got to cross off the list at PaizoCon was the No Direction sound set for Sirenscape. I recorded it. So what is going to happen is that you are going to get a sound set of a chimera attacking a gnome village, and the gnomes fighting back. And because crossing something off the list is obviously not good enough for me, I added something on the list in that I told Ben, what if I actually wrote up an encounter that you could then play this specific sound set for, and it would be like a package deal, which he loved. And now it's on the list, which is on the list below, getting all the PaizoCon coverage out. And the PaizoCon UK coverage is still not up yet. And the Dave Gross Tarrasque Invitational is also on the list. So, Param, I am not adding anything else to the list. I went to a whole PaizoCon and not ask for a single freelance assignment, even though this year's Pathfinder Society theme is the Year of Cobra. I did not talk to John Compton about writing another adventure for it because I want to get Millinarstead out, and I've got all these other commitments that I want to get to. And I got to cross one thing off the list, which I am so happy for.
I'm happy for you for crossing off one thing off the list.
Thank you.
And then -1 point for adding more.
Yes.
All right. Well, evidently Conjura is very popular, so I'm still waiting for mine. So I may or may not get to participate, though I want to paint up a Conjura.
I was sitting at the Paint and Take, which was sponsored by Reaper, and Reaper Brian was there, and I always love talking to Reaper Brian. And he showed me a picture of his Conjura, which he had converted to have gigantic bat-like wings. And he decided to go with a really bright yellow color scheme, and that kind of threw me off. So I loved the conversion, but that's not the direction I'm going to go. I'm definitely going to go more of a muted Godzilla-type color scheme, I think.
I think I'm going to go reds.
Oh, really?
And I want to see if I can mod a turtle shell back.
Wow. Well, he's already got he's got plates on his back. Anyway, good luck on that. Oh, man. As we talk, I want to tell more and more stories. Like, I sat at Crystal Frazier's Delve and basically came across the dead body of Captain Planet, which then exploded into a bunch of elementals, which we had to fight. And Reaper Brian, as you may have seen in the pictures of someone else's Delve, of Cosmo's Delve, Reaper Brian and the Reaper team were making the Ronald McDonald family. out of miniatures for
Oh man,
causing the
that
Rundell.
Grimace scared the heck out of me.
There's the Grimace. They decided to make Ronald a giant clay golem, so he's this gigantic, beefy Ronald McDonald with no hair, but he's got some kind of red hair painted on. Such a weird choice, which just makes it that much better. There were Fry Guys. There was the apple tart tree. Like, I could go on, Param. There are so many things that I have not talked about that I would love to talk about, but then you just have to experience it for yourself. You and anyone that hasn't gone through their own PaizoCon yet. It's such a different con. It is such an amazing con for Pathfinder enthusiasts that 2016's PaizoCon is just a year away. They actually announced the dates, but I don't have the program on me to tell you what they are. I believe it's the same weekend so that they can get the 4-day con again. Oh, we haven't talked about how great it was that it was a 4-day con. I was hesitant that they would add the 4th day, but the 4th day ended up being really great for sleep and just kind of decompressing one last day and getting a couple of last minute things in. Param, there's so many things we could still be talking about, but we've gone, well, we haven't gone long, but we've reached the end of the show.
Us.
Yeah. I mean, I basically would need 4 days to tell
About
all the
4
stories
days
from this year's PaizoCon.
Well, I'm sure we'll continue to hear a lot more stories about PaizoCon in future banter segments.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to not make this episode go on forever, until next time, I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param.
And I am Ryan Costello. And if you want to find the path, you need no direction.